Kicking off the list at number 10, the Time Trapper. First appearing in Adventure Comics 317, the Time Trapper comes from the far future. He actually prevented the Legion of superheroes from traveling into their future using an iron curtain of time. He likes to hang out at his home located safely at the end of time. How neat is that? Kind of similar to Kang. In his first few issues, the Time Trapper was seeking the Concentrator, which was a weapon that draws energy, any energy source in the known universe, together. It's also a pretty big secret as well. The Time Trapper pretended to be the commissioner of the science police and tortured the Legionnaires, although they said it was a test in order to gain intel. Now, Lightning Lad knew something was fishy, so he cracked and spilled secrets, false ones of course. So this brought the team to actually figure out how to assemble the real Concentrator. And when an angry Time Trapper returned, he launched a plethora of Dark Stars at the crew, but luckily that Concentrator could absorb any energy source, like I said, so they were blasted out of existence. We're good. The Legion lived to tell the tale, but we just got Kang in the MCU, so I don't think we need another Time Lord showing up. My brain hurts enough already. Give us like 5 years and then bring in some more time stuff. Number 9, Eclipso. Making his first appearance in House of Secrets issue 61, Eclipso was made from God's spirit of wrath. He's the living embodiment of wrath. It doesn't get more menacing than that, folks. He was made to punish the wicked, to clean the world of evil, of course, until the Spectre replaced him. Wrath was driven by anger, whereas vengeance, that required more of a discerning hand. So what happened after was Wrath's physicality was trapped within an all-black diamond called the Heart of Darkness. The Heart of Darkness, kind of like the heart of the ocean, but instead of Rose tossing it overboard, a treasure hunter found it in Africa and accidentally split it into 1,000 pieces, and now we're all. Each of those pieces contained a shard of darkness. So Eclipso figured out a way to possess people through these diamonds, and that first man being possessed was Bruce Gordon. Bruce was a scientist specializing in solar energy. While he was in a jungle observing a solar eclipse, a sorcerer named Mofir attacked him with one of those black diamonds, and after that, every eclipse, Eclipso would take over Bruce. Unbeknownst to Bruce though, Eclipso would soon learn to bind himself to anybody near any shard that happened to be angry at the time. Nowadays, there's a lot of angry folks, so this is bad news. The entity of wrath possessing anybody who gets upset, that sounds, yeah, just smile and wave, I guess. Just lie. Just lie and pretend you're happy. Then you're good. Before we continue on with this list, if you want to spread the love and hit that thumbs up, it really does wonders for us at the channel. You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for watching. Let's keep this going. Number 8, Justice Lord Superman. Coming from the animated universe, the 2003 Justice League episode titled A Better World showed us one that's rather the opposite. This parallel universe showed Kal-El and the Justice Lord storming the White House after President Lex Luthor had just executed the Flash. Now the team of course wasn't too happy, so Batman and Wonder Woman fought off the Secret Service while Superman told Luthor that he's taken him in. Lex is insane, so he had a button ready that could literally start a nuclear war if it was pressed. And he's threatening Superman, saying that he needs to use deadly force if he wants to save the people. So Superman's like, okay, and then just eyes glow red, and then he turns them into ashes, just like that. And when Batman and Wonder Woman come back in, it's far too late. Superman just has a smile on his face, and Lex is just a pile of dust. Good times. After this, for the next 2 years, the Justice Lords would rule using violence like it was normal. They saw this and they're like, well, that certainly did the trick. Let's just keep doing that. Justice Lord Superman used his heat vision to wipe out all of Earth's criminals and villains. If we had him in the DCEU, the movie would be a lot shorter than 4 hours. It would be like 36 minutes. Snyder cut, maybe 44 minutes. Number 7, Superboy Prime, another super menace. First appearing in DC Comics Presents issue 87, this version of Supes has more powers and less weaknesses. I'm talking immunity to kryptonite and magic, which is a fantastic combo. He arrived to Earth and was soon discovered by Jerry and Naomi Kent while they were on a hike in a New England seacoast town. They named him Clark, although Clark Kent was the name of a popular comic book hero named Superman. So yeah, Superman already existed on this Earth, so Clark grew up and later attended a costume party at a beach and dressed like Superman. He went to get a glimpse of Halley's Comet and it was all a good time, and then all of a sudden a tidal wave hits, this portal opens up, and the Superman from the comics pops out. Now at the same time, young Clark's powers manifested and he quickly learned what to do with them in the moment. Superboy then followed that Superman back into the portal to an alternate reality, and he would never be the same again. Crisis on Infinite Earths was this multiversal catastrophe where parallel dimensions were being consumed by the Anti-Monitor. who I'll talk about later. Superboy dove in, joined the fight, but was unable to prevent the destruction of his Earth. So Superboy Prime and other survivors escaped to a paradise dimension that Alexander Luthor Jr. offered. Using crystals, Superboy just relived happy times in this paradise, but eventually he got frustrated and shattered the barrier of reality. He literally punched everything apart. He retconned quite a bit in DC continuity. For example, he brought back Jason Todd, he combined Superman's origins, Doom Patrol was now rebooted, and we had numerous incarnations of Hawkman and the League of Superheroes. I feel like DC could use a big bad Superboy Prime punch to clear up the timeline, but hopefully the Flash movie does that, because this guy is just a little too crazy. Number 6, Brainiac. Another close rival of Superman's, Brainiac made his first appearance in Action Comics 242. This guy right off the bat is a very specific villain. He would love to steal cities. Yeah, watch out for your cities, keep them safe, put them under your mattress. He took Metropolis at one point. This guy's wild. He would use his shrinking ray, shrink your city, and then take them back to his planet. Vril Doc started his days as a scientist, and one day he successfully cloned himself because he needed an assistant, so who better to hire than yourself? He built the spaceship Next and traveled to the cosmos, gaining knowledge and studying alien organisms with the help of his robot drones, and during these travels he came across Krypton while General Zod was still running the show. So of course, this dude shrunk down the entire city of Kandor and studied it in his ship. He made a remote scout unit that believed it was the original Vril Docs, and then it traveled to Earth and took over the body of sideshow mentalist Milton Fine, whose stage name was Brainiac. Now it makes sense. Number 5, Necron. Also known as the Lord of the Unliving. Great. Necron made his first appearance in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps issue 2. He's literally the embodiment of death. Necron figured out the land of the living existed after the death of an immortal caused a rift to open between dimensions. So Necron saw all of this life and he was like, this looks tasty. He wanted it. Well, really he wanted to master it and get out of his hell, his literal hell that he was living in. So he resurrected Krona, even throwing in a classy army of the dead to assist in taking down the Guardians of the Universe. Taking them down ended up widening the rift, so it took all the Green Lantern Corps to stop them, but even after winning, countless lives were lost in this fight. Hal Jordan ended up going to the land of the unliving, accepting the possibility that he may just never return, and there he gathered the souls of other fallen lanterns, and it was just enough to fight off Necron and return, with the Guardians sealing the rift promptly afterwards. But like Necron says, you can never defeat death. Back in 2009, it was revealed Necron was behind the Black Lanterns and instigated the Blackest Night event. There he took over the bodies of Wonder Woman and Superman while also bringing back dead heroes to join his side. Number 4, Prometheus. Helmets are pretty important, especially in combat, and especially if one helmet in particular gave you the skills to beat, I don't know, Batman. Prometheus first appeared in New Year's Evil, Prometheus issue 1 back in the late 90s, and at first he was just the son of two criminals who traveled across the US, real Bonnie and Clyde style. But as a kid he would have to go with them, right? Because they couldn't afford a babysitter. They were rich with like mob money, but they couldn't afford a babysitter. Okay, so eventually the police caught on and they were never seen again. The police killed them in front of the boy, almost like a darker Bruce Wayne origin. So he grew up with their fortune, only it was a stolen fortune. Then he traveled the world, trained as a fighter, trained as a mercenary. He learned a dozen different languages and he was pretty skilled by the end of it. Then he found the ancient city of Shambhala where their monks studied evil. They trusted him and showed him their greatest treasure, which was an alien ship. Not too bad. Their leader was actually an alien in disguise. He landed there, but Prometheus had to kill him to obtain the key to enter the Ghost Zone. The Ghost Zone was this infinite expanse of white emptiness, the space between dimensions. Kryptonians called this the Phantom Zone. And in there, Prometheus built himself a house, a costume, and his first advanced helmet that downloads info to take on the Justice League. He was great, like he shot Martian Manhunter so then he couldn't change. He infected Steel's armor with a virus, he hypnotized Huntress, and he hit Green Lantern with a neural shaft so his ring was useless. He also trapped Zoriel in said Ghost Zone and beat Batman with hand-to-hand combat. Not too shabby at all. Number 3, the Batman who laughs. We've seen quite a few Batman on screen. We're even seeing Michael Keaton return to Gotham in the next Flash movie, which is pretty exciting. But the Batman who laughs, aka the Darkest Knight, might be a bit too hardcore for the theaters. Coming from the Dark Multiverse, first appearing in Dark Days the Casting, created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, comes a twisted Earth 22 version of the Batman who laughs. The Joker here is insane. He goes on this spree throughout Gotham, just chaos in the streets. He took out Jim Gordon, then he poisoned Batman. It was all bad, and then once Batman was able to move again after the poison had run its course, he broke the Joker's neck, which is already immediately so dark. But even the Joker was prepared after death. After that snap, he let out this toxic breath that let everybody near him get infected, including Batman. Cut to 2 days later, Batman and Superman are talking about what happened, and when Superman tells Bruce that a kid infected by Joker bit a doctor, Bruce ends up laughing, like this maniacal laugh. And he catches himself after, he's like, sorry about that. Superman knows something's off here, but a day later, Bruce called the team to the Batcave and went full on Omni-Man. He took out the entire team before anybody caught on to his new and violent personality. Number 2, the Anti-Monitor. Making his first appearance in Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 2, the Anti-Monitor was DC's excuse to cut out a lot of fat from the comics, basically. The multiverse was introduced back in the 60s. The Golden Age heroes were residing on Earth 2, and then came Earth 3, and then so on and so forth. So when Crisis on Infinite Earths came around, DC Comics introduced this big bad cosmic villain to set something straight going forward. Clean up the multiple timelines, makes sense. Now it all started when Crona performed this experiment. They wanted to see the origin of the universe, but instead an opposite universe was created, the antimatter universe. Anti-Monitor wanted nothing but death and destruction, and after battling his brother for, say, I don't know, 1 billion years, they both fell unconscious. And then 9 billion years later, they were woken up. When they tried to destroy Earth 1, many heroes lost their lives, and in order to stop that chaos, Superman had to punch them into a star. Who knows, with the Flash opening up the multiversal door, we could see him on the big screen in our lifetime. Maybe. And finally, number 1, Perpetua. Of course, one of the most feared beings in the greater Omniverse. Also known as the First Creator, she made her first appearance in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8. She was the mother of the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and World Folder. She was actually one of the hands that created the multiverse, literally. Each member were these celestial beings, and they would pass on, and their energy would return to the source, but Perpetua was different. She wanted a dark, vicious reality that would live forever. So she created the first iteration of the multiverse using negative crisis energies, and then had 3 cosmic children. She was creating an army also to rule over the multiverse, so her children snitched. Yeah, they told the judges of the source, and Perpetua was locked away outside the source wall with her negative energies. But even locked away, she was able to connect to Lex Luthor, who believed freeing her would make him a hero on some multiversal scale. Kicking off the list at number 10, Giganta. Dora Zuul made her first appearance in Wonder Woman Volume 2, Issue 126. She's a supersized villain. She's literally a giant, if her name didn't already tip you off for that. She was once suffering from a fatal blood disease, so in order to try and save herself, she attempted to transfer her life essence into the body of Wonder Woman, which I gotta say, great call. As far as vessels go, that's a pretty good one to use. Because Wonder Woman at this time was in a coma. She was being held at the experimental medical facility where Zuul was working, so kinda, it was worth a shot. Now during this process, Wonder Girl came in and interrupted it, so instead Zuul's life essence was transferred into a giant test gorilla named Giganta. I can't even say that with a straight face. So instead, Zuul's life essence was now transferred into a giant test gorilla named Giganta. Oops. Now of course, this was a no-go, so her next idea was to transfer herself again, but this time to a strong circus lady named Olga. The transfer worked, and Doris could now turn into a giant because Olga apparently could do so before. I think we're okay without giants. I think anything with giants we're just gonna keep out. If it doesn't have a cape, then no. That's it. Number 9, Psycho Pirate. Psycho Pirate. Charles Halstead made his first appearance in All-Star Comics issue 23. He first showed up in the Golden Age of Comics. He was originally an employee of Rex Morgan, who ran a newspaper company called The Daily Career. He wanted more success, of course, so he made the alias Psycho Pirate, and he started to use emotions as a theme for crimes. That sounds intimidating, I think. So the Justice Society would solve crimes based on emotions. That doesn't sound too powerful for the DCEU. If anything, it sounds a little boring where we're heading now. The new Psycho Pirate came out in Superboy Volume 6, Issue 23, and he was much different. Roger Hayden can now control emotions, which is a big upgrade. Psycho Pirate is aware that the universes have changed, like he saw the nature of reality die and then get reborn, like New Crisis, Flashpoint, all that good stuff. He was just stuck in the universe watching it all fold and then unfold again. The reality created by Dr. Manhattan's timeline tampering had Roger as a member of the 20, a group of Metropolis citizens infected with Brainiac's psionic virus. So now Hayden can alter your emotions using the Medusa mask. He's getting better and better. The first mask was an artifact stolen from the Metropolis Museum of Art. That mask gave him godly abilities, and we see this in Superman Volume 3, Issue 24. Now the second mask used was from Batman Volume 3, and that mask was more of a tool to help him channel his own ability to change others' emotions. Medusa mask or Majora's mask? Which would you rather own? It's a close one. And before we continue on with this list, you know the drill. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you're loving this part 2, which you should be if you're still on board. Those likes surely add up and help us out here at the studio, so thank you so much. Now let's get right back to this list. Number 8, Super Doom. Coming from Earth 45, this Superman was a project gone wrong. He first appeared in Action Comics Volume 2, Issue 9, when Jimmy Olsen created a machine that turns thoughts into reality. All these thought machines and emotion machines, it's a bit odd, but I like it. So the gang decided to make a robot Superman next with that machine. They ended up selling this device to Overcorp, which made it into Superman: The Last Night of Tomorrow, aka the monstrous Super Doom. Overcorp used him to take over the planet, but still, that wasn't enough. Super Doom entered the bleed space, where he would then search the multiverse for its creators, destroying planets and other versions of Superman like Optiman of Earth 36 and Superman of Earth 42. But eventually he came to Earth 23 and had to go toe-to-toe with their Superman, President Calvin Harris. I'm all for evil Supermans in a nightmare sequence, but Super Doom might be a little bit too much. I don't know. Number 7, Relic. Ancient enemy of the Green Lantern Corps, Relic made his first appearance in Green Lantern Volume 5, Issue 21. He's been around for a while, like before space-time. I'm talking like a while. Before all this, he was a scientist in his universe who believed that harnessing the emotional electromagnetic spectrum was a bad idea. He figured it would lead to tragedy, and given others on this list, I have to say, he was kind of onto something. So he thought all these other lightsmiths were drawing their power from a specific place, and eventually that place would run dry. Guy's a futurist, what can I say? So he searched the cosmos far and wide trying to prove his own theory, and he had universal support backing it. But nothing was jumping out at him. There was no solutions, he didn't really come across anything, until one by one the 7 core lightsmiths began losing their powers. The only living being left after that war was a lone green lightsmith. So Relic then passed to the next universe, and he was remade as a giant, kind of like Dor-Zul. We love giants. He was first found by White Lantern Kyle Rayner in the Templar Guardians. But he didn't want what happened to the Lightsmiths to happen here, so he traveled to Oa, where he warned the Green Lantern Corps that they should surrender their power rings. And they of course were like, no, get out of here, peace. And then in turn, Relic forcefully drained their powers and destroyed their planet. Either one way or another, I guess it's happening. Okay, Relic, sure. Number 6, Volthoom. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern Annual Volume 5, Issue 1, Volthoom was an ancient force that had the ability to warp reality. Sweet. He was originally from Earth 15, and after his world was on the brink of destruction, so him and his mother used the newly discovered emotional electromagnetic spectrum, which is a multiversal force powered by all life in the multiverse, and then they used this power to create the Travel Lantern, and Volthoom left to find safety while his mother stayed behind and unfortunately, in superhero fashion, died right as he left. This first lantern traveled for weeks through space and time in desperate hopes to find something to save his home. So he goes to Earth 17 and he uses the spectrum to resurrect plant life, which is cool, but then next he travels to Earth 47 and they use the spectrum to create beautiful music, also pretty cool. And then he went to Earth 3 where he met a sorcerer named Mordu, in which he creates a power ring out of a piece of his soul, that ring of course being called the Ring of Volthoom. You're not going to name it after somebody else, so it's only fair. He finally found Earth 0 where he acted as the law and order. Eventually Volthoom's mind was corrupted from the spectrum and he became insane. I feel like anybody who has a ring in general just ends up going insane. Like Lord of the Rings, it's like, come on. Number 5, Atrocitus. What a name! Okay, he must be a gentle soul. Atrocitus entered DC Comics back in Green Lantern Volume 4, Issue 25. He is the leader and founder of the Red Lantern Corps, the Red Power Ring fueled by nothing else but rage. So since the death of his family, he's been after the Guardians of the Universe. His family was residing in the ever so peaceful sector 666. Krona, one of the Guardians of the Universe who I talked about in part 1, reprogrammed Manhunters to extinguish life. So when they all went nuts, this was one of the many worlds destroyed. He was one of the 5 survivors left on Sector 666, so together they became the 5 Inversions. They soon became known as the Empire of Tears, which sounds like a punk rock boy band, but in reality they were performing rituals to see the future, like the Blackest Night Prophecy and stuff like that. Atrocitus created the Red Lantern Corps, but he's also really known for corrupting Sinestro. Number 4, Oblivion. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern New Guardians Annual Issue 2 back in 2014, Oblivion is made of Kyle Rayner's rage, fear, and anxiety, all rolled into one. Lovely. He's the physical form of all those traits, and he even believed himself to be Kyle Rayner. He stayed at this guy's apartment and he even tricked Carol into thinking that he was the real deal. He has powers that allow him to shapeshift, obviously, but he can also teleport and project vast amounts of energy that match a white lantern. He can also create illusions of objects and people. He can make anything he wants. You're going to be very confused if you go on a dinner date with this guy. One day, Oblivion teleported Carol and himself to Arizona, where he used his powers to change everybody's appearance, and he even changed buildings all around him. No thanks, we don't want any of that in the DCEU. Sounds fun, but sounds kinda unfixable. Number 3, Mongol. The insane ruler of Warworld. Yeah, he's for sure making this list. He first appeared back in the 80s in DC Comics Presents issue 27. He was a Superman villain who was exiled into outer space by his own people. A man called the Archimandrite came along, took it over, and from that point on the planet was just a cruel wasteland. Mongol drifted through space, and over his cosmic commute he picked up immense powers along the way until he eventually arrived on the 5th planet of the Cygnus system, where the Martian race protected the Crystal Key. The Crystal Key was the only way to gain access to the planet Warworld. So Mongol kidnapped Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Steve Lombard in order to get Superman to punch those Martians out of the way. Martian Manhunter ended up freeing Superman's friends, but by the time everything was done, they were all so low energy that they still couldn't fight Mongol, so he got the key and teleported away. It took both Superman and Supergirl to destroy Warworld, but Mongol ended up escaping anyways. I think I like this guy, but he might be a bit too strong for the DCEU, but hey, never say never. Number 2. Kronos. If you do the crime, you're doing the time, but if you have enough time, you can plan said crime out in detail, and maybe you won't even get caught for that crime. Confused? That's what time does. David Clinton first entered DC Comics with the Atom issue 3. He's mainly a villain for Ray Palmer. Now, he was a criminal his entire life, but finally he was arrested, thrown in the slammer where he had time to think. Maybe a bit too much time, because then he reflected on all of his past crimes and what he would have done differently had he planned it better. And he used his skills and obsessions with timepieces to work non-stop in the prison workshop. So he learned about clocks, time, anything, the mechanisms within them, all that good stuff. And when his sentence was up, he was released and then became a time-traveling villain. He used time-inspired weapons, like literally, he used an exploding hourglass or a wristwatch filled with blades instead of hands, and he also had a device that could literally slow down time. And then he started going by the new name Kronos. In the DC animated universe, he used these devices to go back in time and steal rare relics from the past. At one point he tried stealing a utility belt from the Justice League's watchtower, but when he was interrupted he made a break for it through a time vortex, but Green Lantern, Batman, and Wonder Woman followed him back through there. We mentioned a time guy on part 1, so part 2, we gotta throw another one in. It's the law. And finally, number 1, Grail. We finally got to see Darkseid in the Snyder Cut, but is it too soon perhaps if we meet his daughter? Am I asking for too much? I don't know. She's pretty badass. She made her comic book debut in Justice League Volume 2 issue 40 back in 2015. She was born at the exact same time as Wonder Woman in Divergence issue 1. The Amazonian assassin Marina gave birth to Grail in secret with help from Penelope and Menelipe. Marina had to defend her child because Penelope heard the prophecy from Menelipe, so apparently this child would cause mass destruction when she grew up. Okay, sure. Marina took Menelipe out, so she wasn't really a concern anymore, but afterwards Marina left Themyscira with her daughter, making it the first time Amazons have left the island. In Justice League Volume 2 issue 40, Grail teamed up with the Anti-Monitor and declared war on her own father. Nice. Being a hybrid of an Amazon and a new god, she's got powers from both. It's quite intimidating. She's destroyed Wonder Woman's bracelets with Omega Beams, and she can travel through dimensions by locking onto those connected to the Speed Force. She can literally hitch a ride through time, so there's no winning this battle, either in the future or the past. Kicking off the list at number 10, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics 595, and in usual comic book fashion, she's immediately catcalled by some gross dudes. She literally looks like a demon, and the guy in the middle is like, tall broads, I love them. Huh. She proceeds to choke the life out of him because she has this fancy ability where one touch is all it takes to kill you. Neat. Heads up 7-Up would be an extreme sport with Siobhan. So she keeps on walking, she continues to a bookstore, of course killing another dude by, palming his head for a hot second. People run out of the store and they're talking about her voice, how it's the weirdest sound that they've ever heard. See, it's not her touch that kills, it's her voice. See, in IMAX, this would just be a treat. Just a woman screaming into the camera for 4 hours. I'll take it, debit. She's not to be messed with. She straight up killed Superman in her first comic book appearance. This is why you try and avoid curses when you're a child, or else you turn into a Silver Banshee and then in turn you have no friends, which is no fun. Number 9. Knockout. First appearing in comics with Superboy Volume 4, Knockout was a dancer working at a club called the Boom Boom Room. It's clear right off the bat that she possesses super strength. But she was having fun at this club. She saw Superboy on TV and thought that he was a little cutie. In fact, she actually doesn't believe that Superboy has ever met a girl like her in his life. And she's probably right. She fought Superboy a bit because she was into it, but later on she was much more of a threat when she joined the Suicide Squad for missions against the crime cartel Silicon Dragons. Once issue 2 rolls around, flirting turns into something pretty serious. She's fighting Superboy and she says that she's glad that she lives here now. Here, so where did she used to live? Well, she used to live in Apocalypse. Fun fact, she was also one of Granny Goodness's female Furies, but after Big Barda left with Mr. Miracle, she too decided that she wanted out. And she was punished for this, of course, so she got chained up to the walls of the fire pits, but eventually she broke free. The second she broke free, she leaped into the fire, and then she was transported via boom tube to Hawaii. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, because it really does help us out quite a bit. And also, we're on to part 3, so if you want to keep seeing more of these, keep hitting that thumbs up, then we know what to do. You're the best. Now back to this list. Number 8, Ultrahumanite. Superman's first recurring nemesis during the 40s, and yes, I'm even talking before Lex Luthor. Buckle up. This genius made his first appearance in Action Comics 13 way back in 1939. His real name wasn't known at first, Mr. Mysterious Man, but this man was gifted with one of the greatest criminal minds ever. He even developed low-level telepathy. He was a hard thinker, but his physical body couldn't keep up, and he quickly became old and withered, so he got other people to do his deeds. That was him in the old days. Now, Ultrahumanite in Power Girl Volume 2 is much different. Here his name is Gerard Shugel, same scientific origin, same failing body, yada yada. But if it wasn't obvious, this time around he experimented with some animals in his origin, and he moved his powerful brain into a massive white gorilla's body. We have Gorilla Grodd in the CW verse, so maybe we'll get a mighty gorilla genius in the DCEU. Sounds terrifying, never say never. Number 7, Solomon Grundy. Killed in 1895 and then tossed into a swamp. Rough. Cyrus Gold was gone for 50 years before he came back to life. We're talking zombies now, let's do it. He made his first appearance in All American Comics issue 61. Cyrus was having an affair at the time and met up with Rachel, the other girl, to talk about what they're going to do now that she's pregnant. So Rachel wanted money in order to keep quiet, and Cyrus wasn't on board. So Rachel's friend stepped out of the bushes, hit Solomon on the head, and he fell into Slaughter Swamp. Great name for a swamp, where he would then lay dead for 50 years. Over time, Gold's body started to mix with the sour vegetation of the, Slaughter Swamp, so he was just churning and turning into a zombie. He came back as this zombie beast with no recollection of his past life, so when he stumbles across a camp, the only thing he can remember when asked his name was that he was born on a Monday. Oddly specific, but we're here for it. The other guy who asked his name mentions the nursery rhyme Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, could it be? And it rhymes, therefore it stays. Number 6, Emerald Empress. Making its first appearance in Adventure Comics 352, the Emerald Eye of Ekron is an extremely powerful weapon. Right off the bat, I gotta talk about this. It's one of the best to ever exist in the universe. It's similar to the Green Lantern power ring, so when Saria gets a hold of it, trouble ensues. Originally from the planet Vengar, the Emerald Empress was the most wanted female criminal in the history of the universe. Which, put that on her resume, that's a pretty big achievement. Her homeworld was the site of the long-dead Ekron civilization, whose secrets were supposedly lost, all for the Emerald Eye of Ekron, of course. The eye will do whatever Saria wants it to, and it follows her around and gives her the ability to fly and hang out in space safely. The eye fixes itself after it breaks, so don't think about hitting it with a big hammer and then calling it a day. The eye has taken down Superboy before, and if we don't have a Green Lantern in the DCEU yet, I think it might be too soon for the Emerald Empress to start eyeballing the league, perhaps. Number 5. Poison Ivy. Bridget Regan has recently been cast as Poison Ivy and Batwoman on the CW, so perhaps she could join the DCEU soon as well. Fingers crossed on that one. When it comes to powerful villains, Pamela Isley packs a mean green punch. She made her first appearance in the pages of Batman back in issue 181. Now she began her days as an only child to a wealthy family, hot start already, but by the time she reached college, she was studying botany. She eventually fell in love with one of her professors, Mark Legrand, and one day she went so far to steal some special herbs from a museum in order to help him with an experiment. But of course, Mark was the worst guy in existence and used that herb to poison Pamela. She of course became immune to all call diseases and toxins after this. Those were her original origins. Now her post-crisis origins were even darker. Can you imagine? That professor this time around was Jason Woodrow, later known as the Floronic Man, made Pamela a test subject for experiments. So straight up torture in her origins. This made her even darker once she did get her abilities, and this time around she hated men as well. So she would seduce them with her powers and make them do the crimes. She once made her boyfriend grow fungi in his lungs while he was driving, and I couldn't think of a worse way to go. Fungi? I'm gonna throw up. Number 4. Killer Frost. Crystal Frost, the OG version, made her first appearance back in Firestorm issue 3. She was a student at Hudson University who fell in love with one of her professors, only he was married, so he wasn't really interested. Crystal, after this, was upset. She was rejected, and now she wants to start hating every dude on the planet as well. Later on, she was a scientist working in the Arctic, where she again was reunited with that same professor. Then she accidentally got locked inside a thermofrost chamber, and then in comic book fashion got the ability to project waves of freezing cold air. Cool, Frozone but with attitude. We love it. Her first goal was to take out that professor, but he was one half of the superhero Firestorm. So she was beat at first, but once she met up with the secret society of supervillains, she was able to go head to head with the Justice League. Louise Lincoln's version of Killer Frost was in Batman Assault on Arkham, and a good amount of those Suicide Squad members are now in the DCEU, so hopefully we see her soon. It could happen. She's next in line. Number 3, Barbatos. Also referred to as the Bat God, heyo, this epic force resides in the dark multiverse. Now we're getting more into the big guys, I guess. So the World Forger was set to watch over the vast universes, and while some of them held up in their own ways, there are some worlds that just were naturally unstable. So what do you do next? You get a giant stick and then poke them and push them out of the universe? No, of course not. You send a dragon to destroy it. That way the energy can then return to said forge. Not a bad gig. Now sometimes you like your job a little bit too much, you know, destroying planets and all, and this was the case for said Bat God. He ended up killing his master, and that was just the kickoff. He then had a real taste for destruction, and then he corrupted the Forge of Worlds. So now with the Bat God not destroying these worlds and sending that energy back sometimes, these worlds would end up becoming part of the Dark Universe. His journey begins with Dark Days the Casting issue 1, and it's mind-bending. Go check it out. Number 2, Cyborg Superman. Hank Henshaw made his first appearance in Adventures of Superman issue 465. He was a scientist, astronaut, team leader of the Excalibur crew. He was joined on this LexCorp space mission by his wife and 2 others. Now they hit some cosmic radiation, and in turn their shuttle crashed. 2 of the passengers' bodies turned into cosmic radiation, then the other turned into a gravel spaceship part anomaly, which I gotta say, one gets cosmic powers, the other turns into a bunk bed Ben Grimm. That's not fair at all. Hank's wife Terry was one of the 4 hit with the cosmic radiation, but she seemed fine afterwards, for a little bit. That's important. Hank's hair also only turned white, so they were both lucky, all things considered. The crew then went to Metropolis to use the LexCorp facilities and hopefully fix their friend and crewmate's cosmic problem. The team ended up clashing with Superman. They were all decaying rapidly, everybody's scared, so of course they're gonna freak out a little bit. Steven flew into the sun. He felt attracted to its powers and then flew into his own death, like a moth. All that cosmic stuff, he was like, and then he just disappeared. Hank manages to tip Superman off right before he decays, so they were only able to save Terry. Jim didn't want to live as a space shuttle rock cluster anymore, so he walked into a MRI scanner, just ended his own life. Really tragic stuff. Terry was now the only survivor of this cosmic nightmare, but in Adventures of Superman issue 468, it was revealed Hank lived through iCloud. Basically, he transferred his consciousness to LexCorp's mainframe, and then he took over NASA's equipment and beamed his mind into the birthing matrix, the pod that carried Superman from Krypton to Earth. So now he was able to travel the cosmos and just learn about local life forms and their history. He eventually came to the conclusion that Superman was in fact evil and he needed to be stopped. After Superman died battling Doomsday, Hank claimed to be Superman Reborn, and of course people bought it, because look at him. This is why you back your phone up, people, in case you become an astronaut and your best friend turns into a ball of space junk. You don't want that happening. And finally, number 1, Mr. Mxyzptlk. This man of mystery made his first dazzling appearance in Superman Volume 2, Issue 11. At first sight, he seems like an ordinary man with an excellent beard and jawline. He's in the office with Lois and Clark, he's the new guy, and right as Lois and Clark are about to leave and go for their lunch date, this random dude starts to rub Lois's feet. Normal office behavior, sure, and then even weirder, Lois bails on Clark. Now she wants to go to lunch with Foot Rub Ronnie. So they go to lunch and they come back 4 hours later, and at this point Lois still doesn't know anything about this man somehow. She's oblivious also to a guerrilla attack that's taking place behind her. So she's in a daze, something is afoot. And then he turns Lois into a mannequin. So what's happening right now? Who is this guy? This man is in fact not a hunk, he's actually an imp from the 5th dimension. Close enough. His real name doesn't even translate into Earth's languages, but we collectively pronounce it as Mr. Mixelplick. He can manipulate anything and everything. He's nigh omnipotent and he's into feet. I think this guy is way too much for the DCEU in any way.
Number 10. Martian Manhunter. While we did get a glimpse at what Martian Manhunter could have looked and acted like in the DCEU through Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League, we still haven't had Martian Manhunter properly introduced in the main continuity of the DCEU. Main continuity, I guess, for the cinematic universe. Unfortunately, while Zack Snyder's cut was his intended vision for the film that he was forced to leave due to a personal tragedy, it's not considered canon to the DCEU. Although this could be retconned later depending on what happens in the Flash movie. Who knows, the Snyderverse could become part of the DCEU again. Martian Manhunter getting the axe initially in the theatrical release of Justice League could have to do with the fact that he is super cosmic or a little more complicated than most heroes when it comes to his relationship with Earth, or it could have to do with the additional problem of his powers. Also, Martian Manhunter is kind of just complicated in general, but in a good way. Despite the fact that Martian Manhunter, like most other Martians, has a fear of fire, he is still insanely OP when it comes to his powers. Also, Martians might be afraid of fire, but it doesn't actually hurt them as severely as their fears would imply. It's a psychological thing. It's not like, yeah, and if you set me on fire, like, I die, just poof, I'm gone. That's not a thing that happens. They just get burned, like we would. John Johns possesses powers of telepathy, telekinesis, super strength, super speed, durability, shapeshifting, invisibility, self-duplication, biofusion, and X-ray vision, just to name a few. So yeah, I feel like that could be a big part of why we don't really have him as like a main part of the Justice League yet. Number 9. Batmite. Although he's somewhat mischievous when it comes to Batmite, he's still generally a force of good, or at least he tries to be. Batmite is Batman's #1 fan and he idolizes the hero. Like Superman's mischievous imp rival, pal, and sometimes enemy, Mr. Mxyzptlk, Batmite is also capable of warping reality, or so it would seem. Later on, his backstory was further complicated when it was suggested that he was merely a hallucination of Batman, a character that represented the rational part of Batman's mind, and existed only in his imagination. Still not known if Batmite is a true character who exists outside of Batman, or simply a character who exists within Batman's psyche. Either way, he's a tough hero to include in the DCEU. Either because he's just crazy powerful, or because it just makes Batman look really crazy and he's like a tiny little, like almost cartoon Batman guy. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like this list where we talk about the DCEU, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing may have gotten his own show very briefly as part of the short-lived DC Universe streaming service, which has since been merged with HBO Max and basically no longer exists, but that doesn't mean the hero will be coming to the DCEU anytime soon. Which is a shame too, as that series had amazing reviews, proving just how awesome the depiction of Swamp Thing can be on screen. Swamp Thing was once Alec Holland, a botanist who, after his lab was attacked, was set aflame while doused with his newly invented biorestorative formula. Alec and his wife Linda had created the formula together. When he ran into the swamp, he merged with it, becoming a new sort of life form, a living swamp thing, if you will, which had also merged with Alec's mind. Swamp Thing is an elemental created in part by the Green during its time of need. The Swamp Thing can connect with and control plant life, has super strength, is immortal, can resurrect, and can change size. There's a lot Swamp Thing can do. If I had a Swamp Thing ad where Swamp Thing was like helping you with plants, that's what it would be. Number 7. Zatanna. Zatanna Zatara is one of the greatest magic users that we have in the DC universe. She might be known for performing magic with phrases spoken backwards, but she's actually so accomplished that she actually doesn't even need to speak to cast all of her spells. Bit of a misnomer, although it is a thing we know her for. She can manipulate time, fly, or give the gift of flight to others, travel to other dimensions, heal, and much more. She has knowledge additionally of various different types of magic, including black magic and necromancy. I know we're supposed to be getting a film for Zatanna in the DCEU, like that's a thing that's going to happen, and that it will reportedly have its screenplay written by Emerald Fennell, the director of Promising Young Woman, but we still don't have the film yet, and there have been talks of Zatanna's DCEU film for a while now, so you know, we'll see what happens. I'm just saying, let's not put the cart before the horse. universe, you know what I mean? Despite how powerful she is though, I would definitely love to see Zatanna in action on the big screen, so I do hope the movie does happen. Not saying I don't want it to, I'm just saying, where is Zatanna? Why isn't she there yet? Is it because she's too powerful? Probably. Number 6. Green Lantern. Green Lantern is one of those characters that I'm still amazed we have not yet had in the DCEU. The Lanterns were teased in Zack Snyder's The Justice League, nicknamed the Snyder Cut, but we still have yet to really have them properly introduced in the DCEU or even included. It actually feels a bit strange to me that we have Shazam, but we have no Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart or Kyle Rayner or Guy Gardner. Like, what? This could be because Green Lantern is such a cosmic hero and so powerful that DC might be afraid any film they put the hero in simply would not work. Also, that's a lot of effects if you're going to space, and they have history with, you know, that hero on the big screen. He was initially played by Ryan Reynolds in a non-DCEU related Green Lantern film way back in 2011. It feels like forever ago now, when the MCU was just getting off the ground and a few years prior to the start of the DCEU itself, with 2013's Man of Steel. Also, oh my goodness, if you go back and watch that movie, like, you can see how hard Ryan Reynolds is like trying to be Hal Jordan, and I'm just like, you know what? He actually wasn't a bad Hal Jordan. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. Number 5. Damage. Damage is an anti-hero who is considered one of the strongest in the DC universe. The only catch is he can only transform into the unstoppable monster-like force, where he has powers such as super strength, durability, invulnerability, magic resistance, and a healing factor for 1 hour a day. However, during that 1 hour, he's pretty much indestructible and unstoppable. He even proved to be too much to handle for Wonder Woman, and later gave Superman and the Justice League a run for their money. However, he ultimately did end up being defeated by Deadman in the end, who showed up and possessed him for the remainder of his rampage hour, defeating him. Still, Damage is a pretty crazy powerful anti-hero that we likely won't see in the DCEU anytime soon. Likely due in part to how destructive he is, I'm sure. Number 4. Orion. Orion is one of the strongest of the new gods and is also Darkseid and Tigra's son. But despite the fact that he is the son of Darkseid, it doesn't mean that he's inherently one of the biggest bads around. In fact, Orion is actually a hero, the exact opposite of his dad, but not the opposite when it comes to the power that he wields. He is also considered a new god, which means that he's insanely strong, durable, and pretty much inexhaustible in a fight. He is immortal and can easily take hits from Superman without really showing much sign of injury. Orion is also a gifted fighter and leader, and at one point even was able to lead an army in defeating the entire Green Lantern Corps, himself fending off Hal Jordan with one mighty punch. He's like, punch, I'm gonna choke you a bit, and then fight is done. Goodbye. Leaving. I'm rolling out in space. Number 3. Phantom Stranger. The Phantom Stranger is pretty all-powerful. Initially, we didn't even fully understand his true identity on New Earth, nor his powers, which weren't super clearly defined initially. What has been defined, however, is that the Phantom Stranger is extremely powerful, and thus far seems mainly limited by the fact that he's not really permitted to interfere in the shaping of the universe, meaning he can aid in fights against universal threats, but not directly affect the outcome with his powers, more providing guidance than getting directly involved. While back in the New Earth continuity there were many potential backstories for the Phantom Stranger, on Prime Earth we know that he was once the Judas who was famous for betraying Jesus in the Bible. His punishment following his death was that he would be unable to die, but instead would have to walk the earth for eternity, making him virtually immortal. He became the servant of a voice that spoke to him, and with each task completed, he got closer to his own redemption. Though it has been thousands of years and he still has not achieved his redemption yet. Number 2. The Spectre. If we're going to talk about the Living Tribunal on our MCU version of this list, you know we gotta talk about the Spectre on our DCEU version. The Spectre is an immensely powerful cosmic entity who is often thought of as a hero, but has definitely had some methods to fighting crime that could be considered morally questionable? Like when he turned a man into wood and then sawed him to pieces? That's a thing that happened. Or when there was a guy that was afraid of fire and he's like, I'm gonna turn you into a candle and like melt you. That was also a thing that happened. I wonder when he turned that guy into wood and then cut him into pieces, if you could count the number of rings inside of him to tell how old he was, like a tree. Because the Spectre can do things like warp reality, that just means that he wouldn't really fit into the DCEU very easily, as we'd need some massive threats in order to give him any kind of real struggle. He would just be like, I'm gonna turn that person into wood. Now you're a candle. Now you're paper. I'm gonna cut you with scissors. That's all handled. Done. Next. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan. Outside of the Watchmen film we had, which isn't currently considered as part of the DCU canon, it's unlikely we'll ever see Dr. Manhattan on the big screen again. It's especially hard to have someone like Dr. Manhattan in the films because, well, he's pretty much always naked, which means we either need to dress him up somehow, put him into an R-rated only film, or have a lot of conveniently placed fruit baskets and props around in the foreground of each shot in order to censor him. Dr. Manhattan, though, when it comes to his power levels, is one of the people responsible for creating the New 52 continuity. That's just how powerful he is. So to have someone who is capable of rewriting the universe in that way within the DCEU seems like it would be a lot, unless, I suppose, if you're planning on completely resetting the DCEU continuity.
Today is a little guy who goes by the name Dr. Psycho. Now, Wonder Woman, being a warrior-bound Amazon, sometimes daughter of Zeus, is one tough lady, and as you'd expect, a good chunk of her opponents are equally, if not more, physically intimidating and pack one heck of a punch. And then there's Dr. Psycho. Dr. Psycho is not physically intimidating at all. He is 3'9" with no kind of super strength. But what Dr. Psycho lacks in physicality, he makes up for in being absolutely psychotic, but also one of the strongest telepaths on the planet. Psycho can match up to Martian Manhunter in terms of his telepathic prowess, and can control multiple different minds with his powers at the same time. On top of that, he is just so incredibly sadistic. When combined with that absolute power, he can cause a bad day for even someone as capable as Wonder Woman. And before we move on, I'm curious, who are your favorite underappreciated villains in not just comics but in any form of media? Let me know down in the comments below. But next up on the docket for today is Lord Deathman. The Japanese crime boss known as Lord Deathman has battled Batman both in American comics and in Japanese manga, using his powers to seemingly overcome death itself, able to rise from the grave no matter what his injuries are. In his first appearance in Batman 180 in May 1966, he passed away 3 times using a yogi technique to appear passed away before the final conflict, which saw him actually get struck by lightning and go on to the pearly gates. But since then, he has actually gained the real power to come back from the grave, but at the cost of having a bare bones skull for a head. His regenerative abilities are so powerful that his fluids are used to create the infamous Lazarus pits that Ra's al Ghul uses to stay young and immortal. One of the first ways Batman defeated Lord Deathman with his new powers is honestly a little out of character for the Crusader. He threw Lord Deathman off of a building into the path of an armored car, which took the criminal down just long enough for Catwoman to lock him in a safe, and then he was shot out into space, and he still somehow came back. Next up is Rogal Zar. Rogal Zar is basically an alien warlord who was actually created by the papa of Superman, Jor-El. Rogal was responsible for destroying Krypton along with Empress Gandello of the Trillium Collective. He went on to later invade the Fortress of Solitude, and he destroyed the shrunken Kryptonian city of Kandor. Now, following a series of battles with Superman and Supergirl, the pair were only able to come out on top when the Girl of Steel used a Phantom Zone projector to send Zar to the Phantom Zone. Now, all of that is pretty impressive, but what really sold a lot of people on his actual raw power was later on, when Rogal escaped from the Phantom Zone, leading an army of criminals, including General Zod, who then turned on him. He did battle with Superman, Supergirl, General Zod, John Kent, and even Crypto the dog, all at the same time, until the Thanagarians showed up and put Zar in permanent stasis. Clifford Smek was a participant in a government experiment which caused him to tap into the quantum field, which allowed him to then manipulate dark matter. Now, we have no idea what that really means because we don't even really know what dark matter is, but in DC Comics, the dark matter in Major Force's body allows him to do incredible things like absorb energy, fly, regenerate, and even create light constructs like a Green Lantern can. Another side effect of all this concentrated energy inside of him means that he will go off like a nuclear boom boom if he is cut. That on its own is a huge power boost, simply because now, as a result, most superheroes can't even risk fighting Major Force, just in case they cut him. But then, on top of that, even if he does go off, ripping apart his own body on an atomic level, the dark matter that he controls will just put Major Force back together again. And that's not even everything. Not only is Major Force a physical threat, but he is also, just to top it off, a psychological genius. Simply by talking to the Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, Major Force convinced the superhero to give up his own power ring, the source of his power, and one of the most dangerous things in the universe. Prometheus is going to be up next on our list today, and heroes and villains with no powers always seem to be some of the most powerful. It's kind of strange. Prometheus, after seeing his criminal parents pass away at the hands of the police, he vows a vendetta on any form of justice, a vendetta that would push him to be able to defeat the entire Justice League single-handedly. He shot the Martian Manhunter with a dart that turned his powers against him and set him on fire. He infected Steel's armor with a computer virus which commanded the suit to damage the Watchtower. He hypnotized the Huntress into unconsciousness, attacked Green Lantern with a neural chaff that rendered his ring useless. He trapped the angel Zariel in limbo, tricked the Flash into believing that he had planted motion-sensitive devices that would just go off if the Flash used his powers, and he defeated Batman in hand-to-hand combat, which is nuts. His origin is very similar to Batman's. After his parents were dispatched from the mortal plane, he would travel the globe training and becoming the ultimate combat machine. But he also attended all the top universities, learning as much as he could. He eventually set up a base in the Ghost Zone, and from here he built an armor that could download information on any opponent's fighting style, and reminiscent of Taskmaster's ability from Marvel Comics. He is kind of crazy capable, but his vendetta on any kind of justice, plus his Batman likeness, just kind of makes him a little weird to me. Next up, we got Tattooed Man. Abel Tarrant was a sailor who discovered a strange chemical that could bring drawings to life. Now, realizing the potential this chemical had, he inked his entire body with it and became the supervillain Tattooed Man. While performing crimes, his ink actually comes to life to attack his enemies. Over the years, he has fought superheroes with tattoos of tigers, cars, ships, monsters, bears, fire, planes, and dinosaurs. He can even use a tattoo of wings to give himself the ability to fly. Tattoo Man has never been considered a super serious threat, but I think he should be, because he is only limited by his imagination. There is nothing stopping him from creating a tattoo of a nuclear boom boom or even a black hole. If he inked kryptonite onto his body, there's no reason that he couldn't take down Superman if he wanted to. Next up today is Dr. Sivana. It's almost ironic that some of the biggest and the strongest superheroes find their adversaries in the form of kind of creepy, somewhat old, bald men. Superman has Lex Luthor, who isn't old, but he is bald. And then for Shazam, he's got Dr. Sivana, who is indeed both old and bald. Sivana is not the kind of guy who's going to be engaging in a battle of fisticuffs, but that's fine because his strength is in the brain department. The villain doesn't have a ton of monumental feats, but one of his best comes to us in the Multiversity Thunderworld adventures. In the opening pages of this comic, Sivana literally attacks the Rock of Eternity, which is the source of Shazam's powers and the home base for the wizard Shazam. This place has never ever been attacked for an eternity, and Sivana attacked it with a bigger Rock of Eternity, which is weird. He had his own Shazam-like team of superpowered children and his own multiversal duplicates helping him along. He manages to take the wizard Shazam prisoner and mine the rock for its own power, granting himself his own monstrous Shazam-like form, and it's crazy. Now, with a name like Psycho Pirate, it's easy to not take this villain too seriously, but Roger Hayden is quite the capable guy. Hayden wears a faceplate called the Medusa Mask, which can control the emotions of anyone nearby, and he staunchly believed that this was his ticket to riches and power. When heroes or the police try to stop his crime sprees, Psycho Pirate just uses his mask to overwhelm his opponents with shame, guilt, depression, or any other number of emotions. He can also make a person develop a phobia of anything he wants them to be afraid of. Like, in his debut issue, he made Dr. Fate, one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, develop Cytophobia, aka the fear of food. And then he attacked Fate with a pizza. That's amazing! Psycho Pirate has played a huge part in some of the biggest DC comics ever, including Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinite Crisis. If you needed more proof, Amanda Waller, the head of the Task Force X program, aka the Suicide Squad, has claimed that Psycho Pirate is one of the scariest beings in the universe, calling him, quote, a man who could make gods go mad, a man who could make the mad gods sane again. And in our second place today is Extant. Henry Hall, the brother of Donald Hall, aka Dove, started his comic book life as Hawk, being empowered alongside his brother by a Lord of Chaos and a Lord of Order who had fallen in love. Now Henry represented chaos. Hawk and Dove together were vigilantes and were even part of the Teen Titans for a time. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, however, in a dystopian near future that was home to a time-traveling hero called Wave Rider, Henry had become an oppressive tyrant named Monarch who ended up going back in time and fighting the modern-day heroes before he was wiped out by the Henry of the present day. I hope you can follow that because it was kind of hard for me to follow when I read it. Present-day Henry then took up the Monarch title and mantle in the modern day, becoming a villain. Now eventually, Monarch stole the time powers from Wave Rider and then allied himself with Parallax, aka the corrupted Hal Jordan, and he took on the new villain name of Extant. While he was the front for Parallax's scheme to recreate the multiverse using alternate timelines, he tried to alter time to give himself an entire army of superheroes and found himself battling all the greatest members of the JSA, and Extant tore through them all like they were a joke, and he even used his temporal powers to age up the members of the JSA that he didn't just straight up send to the afterlife. And lastly today, I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from this universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his giant wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then, Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that he was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he's trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him or defeat him, they just trapped him. This all-powerful, mind-controlling 7-inch long worm. Coming in at number 10 is Raven. Rachel Roth, known as Raven, is a unique individual with a dual nature, part human and part demon, being the daughter of the fearsome Trigon and a woman named Arella. Born in Azarath, a realm different from Earth, Raven grew up feeling like an outsider due to her origins. Seeking answers about her identity, she accidentally summoned Trigon, resulting in the destruction of Azarath and her abduction by her malevolent father. Despite her tumultuous lineage, Raven found solace and purpose as a valued member of the Teen Titans, a group of young superheroes. During her time with the Titans, she developed a deep connection with Damian Wayne, also known as Robin, and their relationship evolved into a romantic partnership. Raven's journey is one of self-discovery as she strives to reconcile her human and demonic sides while battling the inner darkness inherited from her father. Number 9. Batman. Bruce Wayne, whose parents were tragically taken from existence in an alley by Joe Chill, dedicated his life to becoming the vigilante Batman. You already know this. As a member of the Justice League, Batman joined forces with his teammates to confront a crisis at the Flash Museum. Recognizing the danger of the devices attached to the villains, Batman worked alongside Green Lantern and Mirror Master to disarm them in the lower atmosphere. With those devices neutralized and the villains apprehended, Batman tried to dissuade the Flash from falling into Professor Zoom's trap, but was unsuccessful. The Flash's actions led to the creation of the Flashpoint timeline, erasing Batman and the world as they knew it. After the timeline was finally restored, the Flash visited Batman and shared the events that transpired, including delivering a letter from Bruce's late father. Touched by the message, Batman tearfully acknowledged the Flash, recognizing him as an exceptional messenger. Number 8. Superman. Kal-El, the last survivor of Krypton, was sent to Earth by his parents, Jor-El and Lara, to escape the impending destruction of their planet. Landing in Kansas, he was adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent and raised as Clark Kent. As an adult, Clark became a reporter at the Daily Planet and assumed the mantle of Superman, using his incredible powers granted by Earth's yellow sun to protect humanity and uphold justice. He became a founding member of the Justice League and dedicated his life to fighting for truth and justice. Following the restoration of the timeline, Clark's personal history remains intact, but with some alterations, including the erasure of his marriage to Lois Lane and a new design for his costume, which actually looks kinda cool. Despite being a relatively new hero, Superman is wildly adored and admired by the world, in contrast to other superheroes who face fear and distrust from the population. I'm talking about in-universe, not in our world. Everyone knows Superman. We all know him. Number 7. Amazo. Amazo, also known as the Android or Professor Ivo's android, was a nanotechnological creation designed by Professor Ivo. Equipped with advanced nanotechnology, Amazo possessed the ability to replicate the traits and abilities of any person or object by observing them. After Professor Ivo's passing, Lex Luthor discovered Amazo and recognized his potential, using his manipulation skills to gain control over the android. Luthor convinced Amazo that he would take care of him as Ivo would have wanted, and he turned Amazo into confronting the Justice League. Luthor sent Amazo on a mission to steal fuel, causing a rampage to grab the League's attention. Through his mimicry, Amazo assimilated the powers and equipment of various League members, including Hawkgirl's Mason wings, Wonder Woman's abilities and bracelets, John Stewart's power ring, and Flash's super speed. With an amalgamation of their powers, Amazo overwhelmed the League pretty easily. Despite Superman's attempt to prevent it, Amazo successfully replicated Superman's abilities as well, further enhancing his own strength. Number 6. Wonder Woman. Diana of Themyscira, also known as Wonder Woman, is an Amazonian warrior princess and prominent superhero in the Justice League. In the Flashpoint timeline, she becomes Queen of the Amazons and enters into an alliance with the Atlanteans, resulting in an affair with Orin, the King of Atlantis. When Mira, Orin's wife, attempts to take out Diana, she is actually taken out in self-defense, leading Diana to claim Mira's crown as a warning. Conflict ensues, but after the Flashpoint event, Diana arrives in Washington, D.C. with Steve Trevor to meet the president, only to be confronted by angry protesters who criticize her attire and actions. Discovering the truth through her lasso of truth, she and Steve proceed to meet with the president. Number 5. Swamp Thing. Alec Holland, a brilliant scientist, developed a revolutionary formula capable of solving food shortages worldwide. However, his life takes a dark turn when he is attacked in his lab and left for dead with an explosive device, we shall say. Awakened by the explosion, Alec finds himself transformed into Swamp Thing as he stumbles into the nearby swamp, saturated in his own biorestorative formula. Now connected to the mystical life force called the Green, Swamp Thing becomes the guardian of plant life and serves the Parliament of Trees. He possesses Alec's consciousness and memories, but focuses his efforts solely on protecting the Green rather than protecting humanity itself. When Batman and the Justice League Dark seek his help in locating Felix Faust, Swamp Thing agrees to transport them, but refuses to join their fight unless it directly endangers the natural world. Reluctantly, he engages in battle against Destiny at Constantine's request, but he is ultimately defeated when Destiny separates Alec Holland's corpse from his body, causing Swamp Thing to disintegrate. Despite his reluctance, Swamp Thing's presence and powers play a vital role in the struggle against supernatural threats. Number 4. Aquaman. While Aquaman gets made fun of a lot for only being useful in water, sort of, the Flashpoint Paradox movie showed us that under the right circumstances, he can destroy the entire planet. Arthur Curry, the son of Thomas Curry and Queen Atlanta of Atlantis, was born out of wedlock during Atlanta's time on the surface. Although Atlanta loved Thomas and their son, she was bound by her promise and responsibilities to marry the next king of Atlantis. Unable to marry Thomas or raise a half-breed child, she left them at Mercy Reef and returned to Atlantis. When Arthur was young, he disobeyed his father's warnings and dove into the sea, where he briefly encountered his own mother. They shared a tender moment before she vanished, leaving Arthur with a kiss on his forehead. Very cute. Despite Arthur's excitement and his attempt to share the encounter with his father, Tom Curry dismissed it as a figment of Arthur's imagination, meaning he gaslit his own son. That's what that means. Curry reassured his son that it was just the two of them and Atlanta was gone for good. As Arthur grew up, he felt that something was wrong with him, leading him to seek help from Dr. Stephen Shin, a marine biologist who had knowledge of Atlantis. Number 3. Spectre. Spectre is the embodiment of divine vengeance and serves as the enforcer of God's will. When someone is nearing death, Spectre utilizes them as a vessel to carry out the universe's purpose. In an attempt to save John Constantine, who had caused a major disruption by altering the timeline, Spectre intervened. He guided and protected Barry Allen through the Speed Force, shielding him and the new universe from Darkseid's pursuit. However, this upset the cosmic balance, and the universe sought to punish Constantine for his actions. Despite recognizing Constantine's past deeds and offering him a seemingly idyllic eternity with his loved ones in the House of Mystery, Constantine's self-loathing transformed the experience into a nightmarish existence. When Constantine confronted Spectre and explained the circumstances, the Spectre realized his inability to offer further assistance. As a blinding white light engulfed Constantine, he screamed in horror, drawn into a fate beyond Spectre's control. Number 2. Dr. Fate. When Steel Maxim was chosen by the Lords of Order during his jogging session up a mountain, don't ask me why, he became the next Dr. Fate due to his physical condition. The Helm of Fate appeared and was bestowed upon him. As Dr. Fate, Maxim used his mystical powers to uphold order and find personal fulfillment in his own mission. He formed a romantic relationship with the Silver Banshee and eventually revealed the location of the Tower of Fate to her. However, 2 months later, Steel was manipulated by Scandal Savage and Knockout, who wanted to acquire the Get Out of Hell free card from the Tower of Fate. Steel, unaware of their true intentions, led them to the tower hoping for a reward. During a fight, Steel became suspicious of Scandal's disappearance. Knockout intercepted him, and in the ensuing struggle, Steel was knocked unconscious. He was later stripped of his power by the Lords of Order, but while he was Dr. Fate, this man had some serious mojo, and anyone who uses the mantle of Dr. Fate after will have that same mojo. Number 1. The Flash. To be totally fair, The Flash has literally resulted in changes to the continuity in the Flashpoint story. The Flashpoint story in the comics resulted in the creation of the New 52, but if we're strictly talking animated movies, he still changed the whole timeline to a universe where the Earth got destroyed, all because he saved his mom. So if he can do that without trying that hard, imagine what he could do if he had an actual plan. Look at Reverse Flash, for example. He was able to extend his own life for ages after actually taking a wound to the head by Thomas Wayne Batman. Imagine the Flash deciding to bring the Savitar story into the animated universe. Yeah, I'm gonna say that the Flash can definitely destroy every world if he wanted to, and therefore is the most powerful DC animated universe superhero.
Number 10. Doom Patrol. This team of freaks were all victims of accidents caused by the scientist Niles Calder. These accidents made the team members outcasts, but also granted them amazing powers, which made them capable of amazing feats. They also have members who would match up well against many members of the Silver Age Justice League. Their leader, Niles Calder, has a tactical brain that rivals that of Batman. Lucius Reynolds can wield magic and is capable of pyrokinesis, which could make him a problem for Martian Manhunter and could dehydrate Aquaman, who in the Silver Age needed to be exposed to water every hour. Danny the Street could make himself a yellow, inescapable void, thus trapping Green Lantern. One of Kay Chalice's personalities can see the future, making her a good candidate to go up against and counter Flash's super speed. Elastigirl's power to grow to huge heights is similar to Wonder Woman's recurring villain Giganta, making them a good matchup, and Negative Man can produce radiation, which he recently used in the latest World's Finest run by Mark Waid to imitate the effects of Krypton's red sun, meaning that he could depower Superman. He could also use this power to give Batman cancer, so all in all, the Doom Patrol is not to be trifled with. Number 9. The Teen Titans. A team consisting of the various sidekicks and young heroes of the DC universe, many fans would assume that the Justice League would have no trouble taking out this team. But I would argue that the Silver Age version of the team is less powerful than most of the more infamous Titans lineups. I mean, Silver Age Batman is the guy who wore a different colored batsuit every night to try and distract criminals from Robin's broken arm. In a fight between him and Nightwing, Tim Drake, or Damian, I would put my money on any of the Robins who have been on the Titans 9 times out of 10. Silver Age Martian Manhunter's weakness is fire? Well, good luck with Starfire. Superman would probably pair up best against Raven, whose magic would give him some trouble. Miss Martian's mind control would be effective against Green Lantern. Between members like Cyborg, Supergirl, Power Girl, and Beast Boy, I think Aquaman and Wonder Woman could be handled. The only leaguer I'm having trouble with is the Flash. Any ideas? Let me know in the comments. Number 8. The Shazamily. Billy Batson, aka Shazam's family of heroes are a powerful force to be reckoned with, and though their youth and inexperience might be a disadvantage if they were fighting the modern League, you have to remember how often the Silver Age heroes made really bizarre, borderline stupid decisions. Superman and Shazam have a history of going toe-to-toe and are pretty evenly matched, so they pretty much cancel each other out. Black Adam is currently a member of the Shazamily, and when he fought Martian Manhunter in the World War III storyline, Black Adam beat him so hard that he left the planet crying. So no issues there. That leaves 5 Shazam family members: Freddy, Darla, Mary, Pedro, and Eugene, all of whom have the powers of Shazam and their magical tiger Tawny against 4 Leaguers: Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman. This version of Batman isn't really suited for this kind of fight, so whether or not the remaining 3 League could survive would really depend on how long it would take Black Adam to murder Martian Manhunter. Number 7. The Justice Society. Before the Justice League was introduced in 1960, the superhero team of the DC Universe was the Justice Society of America. They helped the Allied forces in World War II and have helped to keep the world safe ever since. This team gets a lot of points against the League due to the technicality we established in the intro. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman were all members of both teams, so won't be considered in this hypothetical matchup. While that removes a lot of the League's heavy hitters, the JSA is still left with a considerable roster that would make them a nightmare for the remaining Leaguers. Black Adam is a member of this team as well, so as stated before, he could handle Martian Manhunter like he did in the World War III storyline. In a fight between Silver Age Aquaman and Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Arthur Curry is coming out of it as fish food. The JSA has their own Flash and Green Lanterns in the form of Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, so that would put the JSA on almost even footing, but once you include additional members like Blue Beetle, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher, and Mr. Terrific, I think the JSA takes it through sheer numbers. Number 6. Young Justice. Yet another beloved team of young heroes who were mostly sidekicks who formed their own team, Young Justice wouldn't last long against the modern Justice League, but once again, you have to take into account the weaknesses inherent to the Silver Age versions of the characters. For example, while you might assume that the first Aquaman, Arthur Curry, would wipe the floor with the new Aquaman and former Aqualad, Jackson Hyde, the Silver Age version of Arthur wasn't summoning leviathans or causing tidal waves, he was riding dolphins and hanging out with an octopus named Topo. As I said in the Titans entry, Tim Drake vs Silver Age Batman is no contest. Teen Lantern might not be a match for Green Lantern, but if any member of the team simply painted themselves yellow, they would probably be fine. Superboy would probably take Superman by surprise with the sheer level of brutality he was capable of, and although he probably wouldn't win, if he teamed up with a character like Sideways who can open rifts to other dimensions, they could probably get him off the board for a while. Martian Manhunter could be trouble, but Jenny Hex's power negation abilities and the sheer power of characters like Amethyst and Naomi McDuffie, I think they could handle him. Wonder Girl and Silver Age Wonder Woman are probably about on par, and Impulse would be able to at least slow down the Flash, but the Young Justice ringer is Summer Pickens, who can dial her H-phone and be replaced with a hero from the Heroverse who can handle the task for her. Number 5. Justice League Dark. This subset of the League is dedicated to dealing with supernatural or mystic threats to the Earth, and has many of DC's most powerful magic wielders as members. Wonder Woman was a member of both teams, so she won't be considered in this entry. A member like Deadman, who can possess people, would be a good way to take out the Flash. The demon Etrigan almost killed the modern Batman in Kevin Smith's Widening Gyre, so Silver Age Bats is totally screwed. He's also yellow, so he could cause a lot of problems for Green Lantern. Superman's magic weakness would make him particularly vulnerable to all of the members of this team, but mostly Zatanna. And don't tell me you wouldn't love to see Silver Age Aquaman go up against the chain-smoking magic wielder John Constantine, who could just use magic to dehydrate him. All that leaves is Martian Manhunter, while the Dark Justice League still has a surplus of fighters like Dr. Fate, Swamp Thing, and Enchantress, just to name a few. Number 4. The Legion of Superheroes. The Legion of Superheroes are a massive team of superpowered people from various worlds in the 30th century. They have a history of traveling through time to team up with a young Clark Kent and preventing disasters before they happen. Unfortunately for the League, this means that their most powerful member is benched for this round. A Legion member like Element Lad, who can transmute common elements, like water, into other things, could take out this version of Aquaman pretty fast, while the Chemical Kid's ability to affect the chemical reactions in the body would cause Batman to go into toxic shock. Dragonwing can breathe fire, which would make Martian Manhunter have some issues. Despite Superman Superman being off the board for both teams, the Daxamite Mon-El has a very similar power set to the Man of Steel and would be a real challenge for Wonder Woman, especially if he teamed up with another member of the team, Superman's son John. There's no one hero who could break the Flash's stride, but considering there are like 24 Legion of superhero members I haven't mentioned, the Legion would take this fight over the original Justice League through sheer numbers. Number 3, the Bat Family. So obviously Batman is off the table for this pair-up of the League versus the various sidekicks that Batman has trained over the years. While I don't think that the modern Bat Family could take out the original League in open combat, their experience over the years in guerrilla tactics and their access to a Bat computer full of plans designed to take out way more powerful versions of the League's heroes would give them a definite edge. But even if we take away those plans as they were developed by Batman, the Bat Family has the know-how to formulate effective contingency plans of their own. In the recent Robin and Batman miniseries, we learned that coming up with plans to take out superpowered beings was one of the first lessons Dick Grayson was taught when he was introduced to the Justice League and the Teen Titans. Characters like Tim Drake and Damian Wayne have shown a keen tactical mind, with Damian repeatedly bragging about how he would plan to take out the superheroes of the League. These Robins, teamed with other members like the various Batgirls, Batwing, Signal, and Huntress, would be more than smart enough to come up with their own plans to take out the Silver Age heroes of the League. We know they have access to kryptonite, although Damian claims to have a plan to defeat Superman in the comics that is magic-based. Dick Grayson beat up Green Lantern as a child in All-Star Batman and Robin after painting an entire room and himself yellow, so Nightwing would have no issues as an adult going up against the Silver Age version of the character. I like the mental image of Silver Age Aquaman having to try and go 10 rounds with the Red Hood, and although Flash, Martian Manhunter, and Wonder Woman would be difficult to deal with, the Bat Family could take them out, and I know how cliched this sounds, if they had enough prep time. Number 2, the Green Lantern Corps. This intergalactic group of space cops use the power of will to fuel their Green Lantern rings, which allow them to create powerful constructs limited only by the user's imagination. Well, the logic I've used so far on this list on how other heroes could defeat Silver Age Green Lantern may initially sound like something the Silver Age League could use to their advantage, this weakness no longer affects the modern Green Lantern Corps. It was revealed that the weakness yellow was due to the being Parallax being trapped in the Green Lantern's central power battery on the planet Oa and causing an impurity. This impurity has since been removed, meaning that the League painting themselves yellow wouldn't help them. Both the Corps and the League obviously lose Hal Jordan due to him being on both teams, but that still leaves dozens of Green Lanterns for the 6 remaining Leaguers to try and deal with. While having the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Superman would make the League last longer than you might think, the sheer size and power of the Green Lantern Corps, with powerful members of later iterations of the League such as John Stewart and Guy Gardner, would make the Justice League outmatched. But maybe we'd get to see Batman take out Guy Gardner with a single punch again before it happened. Number 1, the Superman family. The Superman family might just be one of the most OP superhero teams in the DC universe, with many of its members having the same powers as the Man of Steel. In this hypothetical matchup, the Silver Age Justice League simply wouldn't stand a chance. Not only do they lose their most powerful team member due to the technicality, but they have to go up against heroes like Supergirl, Superboy, and the John Kent Superman. I think Kara Zor-El is the most interesting matchup against this version of Wonder Woman, and that Power Girl could take out Green Lantern with John Kent wiping the floor with Silver Age Aquaman. Martian Manhunter would be dangerous with his mind control, but a bolt of heat vision from Superboy would probably be sufficient. The Flash is tricky but by no means impossible to defeat in his Silver Age iteration, and honestly the biggest threat to the Super family would be Batman with his kryptonite. But Lana Lang's Superwoman is not affected by this, so she should be okay. Anyone left over from the fight would be in no condition to keep going for long, which is when the last line of defense would kick in. A super dog, cat, and monkey, all with the powers of the Man of Steel. Honestly, the Superman family is so powerful that even the modern version of the Justice League would have trouble triumphing over them if it ever came to blows between the two groups.